What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Mindset podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. Today, I'm joined by Jim Shockey. I'll just give you a brief background on who Jim is. Jim is a Canadian outdoor writer, a professional big game outfitter, and television producer and host for many hunting shows. Shockey is the producer and host of Jim Shockey's Hunting Adventures and Jim Shockey's Uncharted on Outdoor Channel and more. He's a retired member of the Canadian Armed Forces, serving the rank Honorary Lieutenant Colonel of the 4th Canadian Ranger Patrol Group. His hunting adventures have spanned 6 continents and 50 countries. Shockey has been called by Outdoors Life magazine the most accomplished big game hunter of the modern era, having taken arguably the most free-range big game species by any living hunter. They also noted that he is the most influential celebrity in big game hunting. It's such a huge honor to have you on the podcast today, Jim.
I'm sure there's some people who heard that and are going, oh man, that guy doesn't deserve to be on a podcast. But it's an honor, so thank you for having me on.
No, of course, no worries. No, thank you for joining. So the first question I want to ask you, Jim, I asked this to all my guests. Can you just talk to me about your upbringing? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth, that's for sure. My parents and myself, 2 younger sisters, lived in a trailer park, so that's how I grew up. And I mean, it was always a conversation around our dinner table whether my father would have a job the following month, whether he'd be laid off. If we didn't get a moose, if he didn't get a moose every fall, we didn't eat meat in the winter. It was macaroni and no cheese for us. So pretty humble beginnings for me. And growing up in Saskatchewan, Canada, Saskatoon more specifically, the prairie part of the Canadian, the country of Canada. So I left when I was 17 to go to university on a swimming scholarship out west of Vancouver. So that's when I sort of got freed of that the humble beginnings and started pursuing my own life.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. When did you actually join the Canadian Armed Forces?
Well, I was bestowed the rank. We're on the English system here, so the troops can actually pick a commanding officer it's the equivalent of a commanding officer, except in the field of battle, I would have to defer to the actual commanding officer. So it's full rank, full uniform, but it's an honorary position. I served 6 years, just retired last year. You're only allowed to do 6 years when you have the rank bestowed upon you. I was kind of hoping the Queen of England would come by, because if she says General Shockey, then you're automatically a general. So I was hoping to get that promotion, but never happened. Never met the Queen.
No, that's fine. Talk to me about hunting then, Jim. When did you actually get into hunting? Because you mentioned earlier that if you didn't catch, moose, you wouldn't eat. So when did you get into hunting then?
Oh, I started at a very young age, following my father, his footsteps, my uncles. It was part of our upbringing. Like I say, we didn't do it for fun or sport. It was purely subsistence, and so I learned at a very early age. I mean, I was going after rabbits as soon as I was old enough to fell, and a little different, I'm sure, for people living in urban centers, but for us living in a rural setting, that was as natural as breathing for us. So at the youngest age possible, probably 10 years old, when I was heading out on my own to do these, subsistence hunts. Now, it wasn't providing a lot of meat for the family, but it helped. Rabbits, that's a meal. So yeah, I was quite young.
What did you use when you used to go hunting at a young age? Was it like a bow?
Yeah, I used bow and arrow, slingshot. I was pretty proficient with throwing rocks if I had to. I graduated to an air rifle. So it's basically compressed air would shoot a lead pellet, and I could hunt rabbits with that. And then of course, as you graduate to the next level, then you pick up a rifle and a center fire rifle to hunt bigger animals like deer and moose.
Okay. Let's dive deep into this now, Jim, because I know a lot of people, when they look at hunting, they see it in a negative light, right? Why do you think that is? What's the reason for that, do you think?
I mean, you can easily correlate that to urbanization. We went from a rural population here in North America to a largely urban population. Just look at the demographics nowadays, and people lost touch with A, the need for hunting, and B, the fact that the meat that they're eating, that juicy steak in that fancy restaurant downtown Los Angeles or New York City, that was a wild animal, or was an animal, domesticated, and but it was a living entity, and so because urbanization separates people from that cycle of life begets death, begets life, begets death. They can sanitize the idea that they have no footprint in this world, and they're not part of the problem, part of the cause of the demise of wildlife. But there's 7.5 billion of us. Every single one of us on this planet is partially responsible to varying degrees with the loss of wildlife. And because you eat a cow instead of a deer, you can't wash your hands of the blood of that animal. And same thing for a vegan. They can't say that they eat soybeans and tofu, so they have no responsibility for what's going on with wildlife in the world. These are monocultures, and regardless of if they're organic or not, that's wildlife habitat that's not there anymore. So every one of us is responsible. It's just that urbanization has allowed people the luxury of not having to claim responsibility or point fingers and say other people's are responsible. In fact, every single one of us is responsible for what's happening to wildlife around this world right now.
Yeah. Would you say that the benefits then of hunting is the moral aspect? Because obviously, when you kill a deer, let's say for example, you kill it to eat it, right? And then there's these animals that are caged up, and the way they live, the way they die, it's not morally accepted. Would you say that's the biggest benefit of hunting, or like what are the benefits, would you say, of hunting?
I would never throw stones at people that they want to have meat to eat. They want protein. They don't want to be vegetarian. So how do you feed 7.5 billion people on this planet? The reality is they all can't be hunters. The market hunting destroyed populations of wildlife historically. Market fishing is still going on today, and that's destroying the fish numbers around the world. So we're trying to feed people, and so feeding them wild animals, wild fish, is not sustainable. It's not possible because 7.5 billion people require so much that you have to domesticate animals. Who am I to judge that? The morality, that's a tough one. I mean, starving is better. Human beings starving. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make that call. It's hard to sit in moral judgment when there's no, you haven't offered any alternatives. And there isn't any alternative. 7.5 billion people in a world that's designed to have a few hundred million. If that's the right way that the world should be, I don't know what the right way is. And so the moral, that perspective is is like I said, I would never go there. I'd never make that call, and nor can anybody alive today make that call, because you need to talk to us in 10,000 years, talk to us in 100,000 years, talk to us in 1,000,000 years, talk to us in terms of this world in 1,000,000,000 years. Do you think it matters? It doesn't matter. So who am I to judge on what's right and what's wrong? I just know that that there's 7 billion head of cattle in this earth right now. 7 billion. There's 25 billion chickens in this world. They've done pretty well. So if they're living in conditions that they chose because it works symbiotically with human beings, and yeah, they lose their members, but the rest of they get to be 25 billion of them. I mean, there's 6 billion sheep, 6 billion goats in this world, 3 billion horses. I mean, wildlife has been replaced by domestic animals, and I mean, golly, to throw stones at people that eat those animals or judge them for morality. I mean, how do you do that? I'm not God. I don't think anybody is that I've met. Maybe there is. Maybe there is God walking around among us right now. That person. I don't want to say he because that's not politically correct. But that person, they can judge, but I can't judge. And what makes hunting right? You can argue on the conservation side that it's the dollars that are being inputted into communities, remote communities, by hunters that allow those communities to have hospitals and roads and teachers and schools and health services that they wouldn't be able to have without the hunter dollars. But then again, is that right? I don't know. More people? What's right? So you're, I'm just not enough of a philosopher, and certainly not a demigod. So I can't, I can't judge other people. I just know that, for us living here, it's sustainable to hunt the wildlife. It's managed scientifically and very carefully managed, as all wildlife populations around the world are nowadays. There's not a single whale down to a flea that's not managed by human beings. That's the reality. They're not domesticated, but they're certainly managed like domesticated animals. So it's a controlled, biologically defensible harvest of them. And if that stops one cow, because we eat a moose, great. And if the money that we spend to eat that moose is allowing habitat to be sustained for wildlife, then hunting is defensible. There will be people though that will argue that hunting isn't defensible no matter how you slice or dice it, and that's fair enough. There's 7.5 billion of us. That means there's 7.5 billion opinions out there, and who's to say which is right?
Of course, no. What you said that is definitely true. Everyone has their own opinions on things, and I think a lot of people, when they look at hunting, most of them they always go to the negatives, but it's important to definitely focus on like the benefits that that you did mention there. When you do kill a huge moose or like a deer, how do you bring that back with you, because it's so big? Is there like a process that you do to bring that back home?
Well, you're certainly not going to drag it home. Just take a moose, for instance, that can weigh, upwards of 1,500 pounds. I'm not sure if you're on kilos or pounds, but 700 kilos. It's an age-old process. The butchering process, that's happened, since we were cavemen. I mean, and I know how to do it because I've grown up with that, and most farmers or ranchers would know how to do it. Certainly all hunters would. Fishermen know, for what they're after. But yeah, and in most places, the law is you have to bring out all of the meat. So if I left this much meat, fist on a 1,500 pound moose carcass, and the conservation officers, found that much meat, then I would be charged, and it's a significant fine. And as a true hunter, I would be mortified to be charged and convicted of a wildlife infraction. I've never been, and I have no intention of ever being. So we follow those laws because we understand that the laws are in place for a reason, and wanton waste of meat of a wild animal is not acceptable. So and on top of that, when we hunt that moose, we can't bring out the antlers. A lot of people think, oh, you're a trophy hunter. That's the terrible word nowadays, or a terrible name calling. But you can't bring out the antlers of the moose until every ounce of that meat is out. So that's the last thing that gets taken out of the mountains is the meat, or is the antlers. The meat has to come out first. And it's a laborious process for sure. It takes time, but it's also a very satisfying in a I guess person listening to this podcast is the product of great hunters. We're all here because our ancestors, our antecedents were the greatest hunters that ever lived. If they were bad hunters, they died. That it was as simple as that. The tribe died off. Those genetics died out. So every one of us is a product of great hunters, regardless of whether we think we live in a city and attend a ballet, so we have nothing to do with hunting. No, you do. Every one of us has to thank those people. So hunters, when you're processing that meat, it's like a spiritual time when you're paying respects to those who have gone before us, the ones that brought us to the dance, so to speak. So yeah, it's a laborious process, but it's also a fulfilling, satisfying process, and it's part of understanding that if you're going to eat meat, it was a living being at one time, and this is what happens to that living entity. And there's people listening right now say, I don't eat meat, I'm a Episcopalian or whatever it is. Did I say that right? Episcopalian, whatever, only eats fish. I mean, today around the world, there's 7.5 billion people. There has probably been in the order of 100 billion animals killed to feed those seven today. Every shrimp, you go to an all-you-can-eat, those are those wild animals. It's like I say, every one of us should understand that they were living entities, and just because you bought it from a supermarket didn't mean it didn't die. So that butchering up process, or the processing of that living animal to something that you can consume to keep your family alive and yourself alive and your family, friends, your tribe alive. That's an important part of hunting. It's not ghoulish. It's real. It's real, and it's, like I say, a paying of respects to those who brought us all to the dance. Every single one of us.
No, of course. I got to ask you as well, Jim, because I watch a lot of Cameron Hanes, and he's he's big into hunting, and like Joe Rogan. And when Cameron Hanes, he actually trains a lot to go hunting. He says, it's not as easy as people think it is, right? He does like ultra marathon running and stuff like that just to get ready for hunting. Do you do anything like that? Do you like work out or anything like that to go hunting? Because I know it does, you got to work your mind as well, right? Because it's a patience game as well when you go hunting, right?
Yeah, I mean, Cameron Hanes, he's not the norm. He's an exceptional athlete and a physical specimen in terms of his conditioning. Do you need to be that extreme to do what I do? I don't know. I'm probably nobody's done more hunting alive or dead. No, not really. But do I keep myself in physical condition? Yes, I do. Last year, 2020, averaged over 12,000 steps a day, according to my cell phone app. Every single day. Not. I'm trying to get to 10,000. Averaged over 12,000. Year before it was over 11,000. So I do that every single day. over the course of the year. Now, some days like today, here in quarantine in Canada, we just returned from the States. I'm not going to get my 12,000 steps, and I'm sure going to be as close as I can walking around our house here. But do you have to run ultra marathons? No. If you're planning to sheep hunt, it certainly helps to be in better physical condition than average. So, another thing, my steps, by the way, I try and do about 800 to 900 vertical feet every single day. So there's hills involved. And I also carry a pack on my back with 30 pounds in it. So, it's not just my body, my carcass I'm carrying around. It's, there's extra. Do I run? No, I'm not, I'm not going to run it. That's, Cameron does that. He's got, he's got the genetics to do it. He's a very, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3" and weigh a couple hundred pounds, a little over that. That's not made for running. Cameron, he's lighter frame, much smaller man, so he can run all day long. And I just shake my head and go, wow. Lifting weights like Cameron does. I think Cameron's 50 now ish. I'm over 60, 63, and I don't need muscles to show off anymore. There's no point. I'm not trying to scare anybody, and I'm not trying to attract a mate. I've been married 37 years to my soulmate, and she's kind of given up on me. This is what I am. But could I walk all day if I had to? You betcha. Could I climb a mountain? Yep, 100%. And do I feel much better being in shape going into a hunt as opposed to trying to get in shape while I'm on the hunt? But field to table lifestyle to be healthy. You don't need to run marathons and do all that crazy stuff but to stay in good physical condition. That's an important part of hunting. Yes. So long answer to a short question. I do keep myself in good physical shape, certainly for my age, and my ego says that I could probably keep up with most 30-year-olds if I push came to shove. You get a little bit smarter too as you get older, and you don't do things the same way that you used to do. You do it better. So that gives longevity as well. But yeah, it's part of the field to table healthy lifestyle. We're the original green, organic, lifestyle people as hunters. We've always done that. I mean, there's no additives and preservatives and steroids and growth hormones and antibiotics being injected into the meat that we eat. And it's not farm raised. It's wild, free. The animals, like you alluded to earlier, live a great life, and that's all part of it. So being in good shape, being healthy is a very important part of hunting.
No, that's amazing. No, that's definitely amazing to hear that. You don't look 63, by the way. Like, you definitely look younger than that. So you're doing something right there.
Yeah. I'll take my clothes off and put a Speedo on, and we'll see if you're going to still say that. My water polo, I played for Canada for 6 years. My water polo Speedo days are long over, I can assure you.
No, I got to ask you as well, Jim. I know you've been to so many places, and I hear the story that you said, which I was laughing so much because you said that you went to Azerbaijan once. And the funny thing is, I'm originally from Azerbaijan, and you had a funny story that you said there when you were in a flat or something like that, and people were trying to get into your flat. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, it wasn't funny at the time. Yeah, we were in Baku in Azerbaijan, and we were in a little pension hotel sort of thing, and there was a fire escape outside. Those old iron fire escapes, and it was the middle of the night. My cameraman and I, we run on a pretty tight budget on those trips, and so we were sharing a room, and I heard something outside the window, and I could see shadows through the drapes. Well, the only way that somebody could be out there was to be on the fire escape. And so I kind of got out of bed, sneaked over and just opened a crack. And there's two guys in big trench coats standing out there on the fire escape outside of our window. And they were talking. And so I said, whoa, this isn't cool. This is, you're talking a while ago when things were a little rugged over there in that part of the world. And so I woke up my cameraman and I said, hey, there's guys out, there's guys out in the landing here. What's going on? And I went to the door to just check the door to the hotel room, and there was two more guys out there that were in trench coats, and now they're on both sides to escape. We can't get out. So I didn't know what was going on, but I knew it was serious. So I don't get afraid. That's just not in my nature to get afraid. But I can say that I was concerned, highly concerned, and so I watched the guys on the landing. You could see their shadows, and the two guys out front I watched, and they actually went around the corner, and that's why I said my cameraman, we just quietly, never turn on any lights. And as soon as they went around the corner, I bolted out the door with my cameraman and went down to the lobby. And the guy in the lobby looked at me like I was a space alien and said, what's your problem? And I said, well, there's guys up there, trench coats on our landing. And he said, oh, yeah, figment of your imagination. I said, oh yeah, sure it is. So we actually sat down all night long down in the lobby, just sat there and waited for the outfitter in the morning. And I have no idea. To this day, I don't know what that was all about. Whether we were about to be abducted, whether it was a case of mistaken identity or what it was. But I know that those guys meant business, whoever they were. They were not people, girl guys. These were middle of the night guys that wanted something from somebody, and it was definitely somebody in my room. So we survived it. Just another one of the adventures along the journey.
Yeah, I know that you've been to so many other places as well, and you have your own little museum, right? That you've collected loads of stuff that when you went hunting, or like when you've been to different cultures. Is that correct? Yeah, you have your own little museum.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd call it a little museum. It's 17,000 square feet, so it's a fair size museum, and it's arguably got more inside it, more installations than most large museums that are government financed. If there would have been a museum like that, it's called the Hand of Man Museum of Natural History, Cultural Arts, and Conservation. And if there would have been a museum like that near me when I was a youngster, I would have lived there. I would have made the curator nuts, with questions, and been hanging out there. I would have got a job there. I'd have done everything, but my family could not have afforded, a $10 cover charge or $20 or $1 even. So I never wanted this museum to be out of reach for that youngster that is like me. It wouldn't have been right. So it's donation only, and it's a pretty successful museum. I've gathered cultural objects from around the world, all legally and all legally exported and imported to put in this museum, and it's a labor of desire, let me tell you, because a lot of these things you just don't get out of those countries without going through years of permitting and processing and whatever else is involved, plus money. So yeah, it's one of the top tourist destinations now in Vancouver Island, British Columbia, here in Canada.
Amazing. What would you say in your own opinion? This might be a tough question to ask, but what's like the one item in there that draws you to it? That was like the craziest item that you found, or anything like that. What would you say?
Well, you're asking me to go back over literally 50 years, half a century of collecting. I was born a collector. I don't know, it's a gene. It has to be a gene, because I've met other collectors around the world in my lifetime, and every single piece that's in there, has had they're handmade. That's or the hand of man touched these things. And so, as a collector, it's not so much the things that you've collected in the past. It's the things that you're, what's next? What's the next? I actually, this morning I found a guitar made by a fellow named Jean Laramie. There's quite a guitar collection in the museum as well. I try and be a musician, in my spare time. So there's a vintage guitar collection in it. So that's, I'm trying to see if I can purchase that for the museum. So it's not so much what's already there, it's what's not there yet. What's the next thing? And as a collector, it's the next thing. What is that next thing? But there, the museum literally has hundreds of thousands of objects. Literally, and every one of them, I've collected personally, and mostly in situ, not always, but some came out of other collections. There's a Giganotosaurus skeleton in there that, the largest theropod found down in Patagonia, I believe, Argentina, and it's a mold of the actual one. And I think there was only 25 made. It's a spectacular piece. It's what you would see in any of the best museums in the world. There's a woolly mammoth skeleton that's all 100% authentic, that is 20,000 years old, and it's complete. There's woolly mammoth tusks, woolly rhinos,
The list goes on.
the skeletons. You can't. It's just like there's a mid-century modern art collection in there. That's another one of my passions, and so that's also every one of those art pieces. Like I say, the underlying theme is that they're handmade. Everything is handmade by human beings, touched by human beings, caused by human beings. Even the minerals that are in there. There's a 90-pound meteorite, stony iron meteorite that human beings found, and somebody carried a 90-pound meteorite from wherever they found it. So yeah, there's just no one individual piece that I could relate back to and say that's the best, because I kind of don't live in the past, honestly. Even though I collect the past, I'm always looking what's next. So I guess today it's that Laramie guitar.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's crazy. Yeah, I definitely need to come and visit that museum. That's for sure. What would you say your goals are at the moment now, Jim? Are you still hunting? Do you still go out like to different countries with Uncharted or anything like that?
I actually 3 years ago we started the exit strategy on our television shows. We had Uncharted, Yukon, The Professionals, Hunting Adventures. That was on the air for 17 years. The other shows, 9 years and 4 years, 5 years. I actually started planning to exit from those shows, or pull them off the air, even though they're doing great and they're making lots of money and very successful shows. And like I say, 17 years on the air, because I really felt it was time for me to slow down on the travel. 25 years, I spent over 300 days a year on the road around this amazing, wondrous world. And that meant there was a lot of sacrifice along the way that I wasn't willing to make those sacrifices anymore, in spite of what the joy I did gain from all those travels. It was time to spend more time at home. Like I said, I'm married 37 years to my soulmate. We're head over heels in love the day I saw her, and even more so now. So it was time to slow it down. So I don't have any plans to travel internationally. I'm quite happy sitting, right here. Puttering around in the museum. We still have a show called Shock Therapy. That's a studio show. We shoot it at the museum. That's airing in syndication now around the world. So it's we're still in production. We do a show on the Aboriginal Network as well, but it's not me having to travel. We're producing these shows, but I can do my parts in the studio and the edit suite. But I'll still go to the Yukon every year to our Rogue River outfitting territory. I'm still hunting a moose every year. It's just part of me. And Saskatchewan to our ranch for whitetail deer. Just to go spend time in the outdoors. And Vancouver Island, British Columbia, where we live. Going up to the north end and hanging around up there, catching clams and crabs and prawns, and so we're still living the outdoor lifestyle. I'm just not doing the heavy duty international now. There's some demand on my time to start doing conventions and speaking engagements. So I may go to Hungary this year. I've been there since I used to play water polo there back before the Iron Curtain came down back in the 70s. So I'll probably go back there maybe and speak at a convention, do a seminar or a lecture. So there's some demand in that regard, but not, I've pushed the envelope a long time, and I have many friends that are dead, that started on the same journey that I'm, realize it's time to end it because I'll end up the same way if I keep doing it. Just law of large numbers. You do something enough times, something that shouldn't happen will. Objective dangers. A rock falls on your head, whatever. Get eaten by a lion, something. So I've slowed up, and I'm 4 grandchildren now. It's time to enjoy life and pass on the knowledge, not necessarily go and make more knowledge.
You've definitely experienced a lot in life, so you've got a lot to look at. You can always just go back. You can go on YouTube and you can just find all your shows. What I'll do as well, I'll leave all the links to your shows and stuff like that on the description down below, so people can go and check them out. Like you mentioned earlier there, have you ever had a nearly death experience with an animal? Because you've come across a lot of animals. I was watching one of the episodes earlier on YouTube. It was where there was a crocodile, and you guys killed like the biggest crocodile. And when you cut the insides open, there was a T-shirt inside the crocodile, which was kind of crazy. So basically, that crocodile has eaten someone, right? Have you ever come like a near-death experience with any animals?
Well, it's kind of my job description. So, it's many times. And that crocodile, by the way, we were in Mozambique on the Zambezi River, and while we were there, a young teenage girl, a croc had taken her right off the shore, because they still go down to the river for their water. The tribal people there and do washing and whatnot, and it took her right off the shore. We were about an hour later. The villagers obviously were distraught, and so we tried to, mollify them as much as we could by trying to get that crocodile. We did not get the one that killed her. Actually, that was a different one that we got, and who it had eaten, I don't know. But they lose so many people along there. We were there for about a week, and the day we left, Croc took the wife and the daughter of the groundskeeper at the little lodge we were staying at, right there in front of us. And I mean, it was, I didn't see it obviously happen, but very tragic thing. People over here don't understand the human wildlife conflicts around the world. The wildlife loses 100 times out of 100. Individually they might win that particular battle, but they're not going to win the war. 7.5 billion people, that's how many we are, and we're not going to tolerate. They're going to kill every single croc. They're going to poison them. They're going to destroy them. They don't want to. And it's easy for us to say, "Well, leave the crocodiles alone, leave the lions alone, leave the hippos alone," but the elephants. But it's not us that are getting eaten by them. It's not our child that was taken by one. So it's a very complicated issue that I don't know what the solution is. If I knew the solution, I'd be telling you right now, this is what we got to do, but 7.5 billion people and more every day. I mean, my guide in Mozambique had 11 children. I mean, one a year, and planning more, and he couldn't name them. I mean, he literally couldn't name them. It's like, it's the convenient social family virtue. John Kenneth Galbraith, the great economist, coined that phrase, and it's more children you have, the more children you have to look after you when you're older. And it's going to be a very interesting next 100 years for the human race and for wildlife around the world. So it's a roundabout way of answering your question. Yes, I've been, I put myself in that situation many, many times, and had many close calls. Probably on YouTube, there's a video of a mountain lion, a cougar, 2 years ago decided to attack me. Like, me, really? Like, this is what I do for a living. The cougar could have attacked a logger or a hiker or anybody, but it and it's on video. The thing, it came out of the bush, made one leap, and I just turned around and bang, shot, all on video. And that's not a wounded cougar. That's not, I didn't cause that. It's a cougar that was starving because there's too many wolves, because we made roads for logging that turns the wolves into uber predators. So they run the roads until they find a track and kill the deer. And they're so efficient. Cougar was starving, left. And so it had no choice. It came after me. And, it's a very remote spot. What was I doing in that spot? Well, yeah, I guess you could say that I should stay home instead of being out there. And I caused it, a victim perpetrated crime. But, that's just, there's just going to be more and more of that as the wildlife fights for the last remaining vestiges of their habitat in this world. So yeah, if you're going to be out there in those places, you're going to run into conflicts. So, I've been charged by Cape buffalo, hippos, elephants, lions, bluff charge, thank goodness. Leopards, bluff charge, come close to getting eaten by crocs. I mean, polar bears, grizzly bears. We had a lady and her baby killed in one of my camps up in the Yukon 2 years ago by a grizzly bear. The trapper, has his cabin right beside our little camp there, and we're the only ones out in that part of the world. It's all fly-in only, and the grizzly bear killed her and ate her. And it could have been one of my guides. It could have been me. It could have been one of my family members. So we've all been there, that same camp. So it's but for the grace of God, and I'm a professional at this, so I'm going to touch a bunch of wood right now, because you're tempting fate by saying those kind of things. But it's what I've done for a living, to protect my clients from these animals, and of course protect myself. So yeah, I've had many situations, but I've probably come closer with human interactions to getting killed than I have with animals. I mean, human life is cheap in many of the parts of the world that I've been to. You can be killed for a pair of running shoes. Mind you, that can happen downtown New York City too. So it's just, like I said, 63 years old. It's time to be a grandfather and tell stories, not go make more stories.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, 100%. You definitely are an uncommon person. You've definitely done things that a lot of people haven't done, or they might have wanted to do, but they've been afraid to do. But like you've been in the armed forces. You've always mentioned as well. You don't get afraid, right? Fear is something that you run towards. It's not something that you run away from.
Fear is fear is not it's not conducive to a proper reaction to a situation. So I'm not going to be afraid. If someone was killing me, I wouldn't be afraid. It's just, what's there to be afraid of? But if you're reacting fear, you're not going to react the way you necessarily need to in a given situation. So trepidation, yeah, and concern, yeah. a heightened state of awareness, absolutely, but not fear. No, I'm not afraid of anything yet that I've seen.
Wow, incredible. Yeah. Just a last question now for you, Jim, before I let you go. I asked this to all my clients, all my guests as well. What would you tell yourself if you could go back in time? Is there anything that you would tell yourself?
I mean, I would tell myself to document everything, to help the future generations on answering questions that we don't know the answers to. It's all surmise. And depending on how far back, it would be, fascinating to go back and film all of that, but somehow memorize every single thing you see, you sense, you taste, smell, hear. Can you imagine bringing that all forward to nowadays? You could answer, what were they thinking in those caves when they were, painting on the walls, painting the bison? What were the people like? And I suspect, and I'm again guessing here because I can't go back in time, but I think we'd be shocked at how sophisticated they were. We think, somehow we're a cosmic event. We have technology, we're so smart. We're not any smarter than they were. They just didn't have some of the tools that we managed to figure out over time. I think you would find that they were very similar, that you could move them into today's world from 10,000 years ago. And no, they're not primitive, any more than we're primitive. They just didn't have the technologies that we have. But I think, the things that matter, love of family, compassion, benevolence, I think all of those are character traits that they had. They may not have been, it's a bit of a luxury for us to, I think pathological altruism is part of our problem nowadays. It's a luxury that we can afford that disease. I don't think they suffered from that. But I like I say, I would love to go back and meet the people and say, what are you thinking? What's going on? Help me so I can take this all forward into the future and tell people that no, you guys have these, you're digging up their graves and sticking our colonial ideologies on these people, and they're, I suspect, like I say, they were just like us. There was no difference. Things that mattered to us matter to them.
Yeah.
So observe. That would be my advice to myself. Observe, 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 and don't forget a single thing.
I love that. Yeah. No, that would be incredible if, we could do that. Maybe in the future people can do that where they can go back in time, but not for us at the moment. But no, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate your time. The things you've mentioned here are it's definitely opened up my eyes as well, and it's definitely made me more aware of hunting and what it takes, and what the what the benefits are to hunting. And so thank you so much for that. I do appreciate that. I appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to say before I let you go now, or are you good to go?
No, I'm good. I think it's a great thing you're doing. It's interesting, and we get so homogenized in this world that that doesn't make things right. Just because everybody's thinking the same and not taking into consideration the unusual, like you call it, the uncommon.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be learned by paying attention to that. So, thanks for allowing people like myself to have a voice.
Of course. No, yeah. The main thing for this is to provide listeners value, and that's the people I'm trying to get on are people like you, people who are going to provide value. So I appreciate your time, like I said again, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Say hello to all your family, and take care. Thank you.
You betcha. Thanks for having me on.